Hello? Did the meeting start? Can anyone hear me?
We're hearing there are tech issues.
It's.
Yep.
There we go.
Camera.
Hey,
No,
it's
it's
there.
10 feet.
Okay.
10 feet tall.
Hey.
There's painting there still in 5. And then they're having a little bit of.
Let me make sure it's unmuted.
Yeah, I unmuted it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going 5 feet. Started the video. So is there a microphone here? I was curious if Dylan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's get
It
this
kept
show on.
declining, for some reason, it kept declining it as a panelist.
Thanks for getting
Hold on,
us.
let me get unpaused here.
Sure. Let me know when we can start.
Okay. Raquel, you're good, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Maria. I'd like to call to order the October 8th zoning board of appeals meeting. I'd like to introduce the board members. On TV, we have Dylan Stella, who's an alternate, but who will be seated tonight as a regular member. To my left is Bill Piggott, a regular member. To my right is Dennis Crow and John Zier, both regular members. I'd like to remind everyone, 4 votes are needed for an application to be approved. That any and all items used are exhibits and will be retained in the file. After the applicant's presentation is made, the board will ask questions they may have, and then the audience may have questions they may have. After the discussion, we'll ask for anyone to speak in favor of or against the application. The presenters or audience speaking are asked to give their name and address the first time they speak, and then just their name any subsequent time. When the application has been heard, we'll close the public hearing and the board will go into deliberations. At this time, no additional testimony to or from the audience can be permitted. And usually we make a decision following the deliberations. So I'd like to ask our zoning officer, Maria Patola, to please read the application for tonight.
The legal?
Yes. the legal notice.
Legal notice, Madison Zoning Board of Appeals, Madison, Connecticut. Notice is hereby given that the board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 8th, 2024 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be conducted as a hybrid meeting in Room A, Town Campus, 8 Campus Drive, and remotely as a Zoom webinar. Attendees may join the webinar through either the webinar link or call-in information below. www.zoom.us, webinar ID 92002702103, password 388818, or call in at 1-646-558-8656. Madison Zoning Board of Appeals, application 24-13, 7 Park Avenue, map 16, lot 72, zone R5. Owner applicant Francois Jackson Williams Revocable Trust, Francois Jackson Williams trustee. Variance request to section 3.6A to allow 21.5 foot front setback where 25 feet is required. 3.6B to allow 12.5 foot open porch setback where 20 feet is required. 3.6D to allow 7 feet setback where 12 feet is required. And 3.8B to allow 1,004 square feet of coverage where 880 square feet is required to reconstruct a FEMA compliant house, and section 11.2 to allow relief from accessory building setback. Application includes a coastal site plan. Further details, including application materials, are posted on the Town of Madison website, www.madisonct.org, under the calendar link to the meeting. Questions and/or comments can be emailed to the land use office at landuse@madisonct.org up to 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Dated this 10th day of September 2024. Richard Gilbert, Chair. This was published twice in the source on September 26, 2024, and once on October 3rd, 2024.
Thank you, Maria. So at this time, I'd like to ask the applicant for application 24-13, 7 Park Avenue, to please go ahead and.
Would you guys like to see the easel? See you guys
Um,
in front of you, off to the side.
We can also present on the screen if you feel it's much
You wanna-
easier.
people-
What do you like to see?
Probably on the screen.
Yeah.
Just tell me what it is.
Yep. Okay, so if you can bring up the architectural plans first.
Yeah.
You can also drop in the front here.
Hello, I'm Russell Campaign with CK Architects. I'm here with Mike Harkin Engineers, and we're here to represent Francois and John Williams, who own 7 Park Avenue, and have asked us to design a renovation of their existing home to turn it into a full-time home. They're planning to move up here full-time. It's been a seasonal cottage that they've had, or I'm sorry, it's a heated cottage, but they use it mostly during the summer for quite some time. They've owned it. And so basically, to orient you, actually, can we go to the last page of my submission, which is the photos? That's going to be the easiest. So the site is very small. It's about 4,400 square feet, and it's sort of tucked in with similar homes on the north and the south side. And it has a FEMA line that sort of comes through the middle of the site diagonally and touches the front corner of the building, putting it into a LIMWA zone. And so a limited wave action zone basically has VE zone requirements on the home. And so in order to basically do anything to this, because the 50% rule associated with investing in it would really trigger a full upgrade, which means it needs to go up on piers and have breakaway walls and such. So really, and then the existing cottage, although it looks, and they had done a pretty significant renovation on the second floor, they had not really done any improvements to the structure of the first floor foundations when they did it. And so they're really in evaluating what would need to happen to bring this into conformity in its location. It really wasn't a feasible option. So we did take the route of taking it down and rebuilding it. And in doing so, we can bring it into full structural compliance, full FEMA compliance. We're planning to move it back on the lot so it's in the still water flooding zone and not in the wave action zone, so that we can not have to go as high and actually take it out of harm's way. The attitude, I'm showing the proposed versus the existing, is very similar. They love the home, they love the views, they love the positioning. And so we took a lot of clues from that, but it is a little taller given how we have to raise it up compared to what it was before. So if we can go back up to the site plan, I'll walk this through and then we'll come back to the accessory structure. So the first variance is associated with the front setback. This dotted line here is showing the existing footprint of the front porch. And we're planning to move the house back 5.25 feet compared to what's there now. So we are asking for a variance, but we're improving the situation. We're constrained to move it back any further because the only place we could fit a septic system to bring it up to code is sitting right here, sandwiched between our accessory structure and our new proposed footprint. So basically, we're able to push the building back, but not really go any further to bring it into greater conformity. The next variance is associated with the open porch, similar to the front setback. So in that case, we're reducing the existing nonconformity by 2.1 feet. So we still need to seek a variance to allow for 12.5 foot where 20 foot is required. But we are improving the situation again by moving it back. It's also bringing us out of the FEMA zone. But that's just in relation to the depth of the porch compared to the second story dormers, which currently cantilever over the porch. So we're not going to cantilever them in the new design. So the dormer is going back further. The front face of the porch is going back 2.1 feet. And then on the north side of the property here, we are improving it slightly, 0.2 feet. But we're very constrained with our ability to actually have a place to park a car. So we have sort of a 12-foot setback on this side that just is enough to bring a car in on that side. Otherwise, we really wouldn't have another alternate location other than the front yard to pull in directly. And there's a little bit of a grade change and such. And I don't think the street necessarily wants frontal parking there. So this allows for the car to fit there. So we're 7 feet on the north side, where 12 feet is required. And that's a reduction from 6.8, which is the current setback. So we're reducing it by 0.2. And associated with hardship for the lot coverage, we're reducing the overall lot coverage on the property by 31 feet. Again, a slight reduction. It's 1,035 square feet of coverage. And the overall house is 1,750 square feet plus or minus. So it's a very constrained lot. There's not much size here for a full-time home. It's very modest still, but we didn't have really much ability to make it much smaller and still make it a viable home. So again, we're reducing, but still need to carry forward an existing nonconformity for this. And the last is associated with the accessory structure. So there's an existing garage that's closer to the property line on both sides and rear. We're reducing the scale of that building in order to reduce that nonconformity, but still have some outdoor storage. It won't be able to house a car or anything. But this is a little confusing, the way that the zoning regulations work is the setback is determined by the height of the eave of the structure. It's a 45-degree line from the corner. So we're asking for a setback relief, even though it's height that's determining it. But the height of the structure is a typical 8-foot plate height and an eave that overhangs. And so if we go to the last page of my presentation, you can see here's the diagonal lines coming off of the two sides, and you can see the existing structure dotted. So in both cases, we're reducing the nonconformity. So on the rear side, we're reducing it by 2.8 feet, and compared to the existing garage, and on the south property line, we're reducing it by 2.7 feet. So in both cases, both making the footprint of that smaller, the shed smaller, and reducing its nonconformity by basically pulling it back from the side property line, maintaining a similar height, which is really a viable shed. You start to get much lower with the eave, and it's not really, going to give you much storage. So we go back up to the second page. So just for orientation purposes, Second page, third page. This is the existing site plan. The layout of the home is very simple. There's a front porch that's open on the front, not planned to be screened. You come in, an open plan living room, kitchen, bath, and mudroom entry with a stair going up. Very minimalist in its layout. There's really not much place that we can squeeze. Very small back porch that comes down to a patio that sits over the septic system and the shed that's in the back. We're hiding the trash cans and a propane tank in the back. Utilities will be hung off the side and the generators in the same footprint sort of setback as the rest. So that's under the same setback variance for the north side for us is the generator. And then the upper stories, you come up, there's the 2 bedrooms and a private bath, stair in the middle, and a den in the middle. And then you come up to the third and there's sort of a livable attic space that's sort of open, has an overlook down the staircase. Very low headroom condition up here, but it does add a little bit of usable space up there. We're compliant with regard to height and average roof with what we're proposing. And I think it's in keeping with adjacent neighborhood with what we're proposing. I think it'll fit in well, still cottage in its feel, still has a lot of the characteristics of the original cottage. So happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding our approach to this.
Do you guys want to review the site plan, or do you want to ask questions and then we move on to the site plan after? Coastal site plan. For you guys.
I thought that is the site.
Well, the coastal site plan is separate. That's going to be my presenting.
I was gonna ask for the actual zoning board application. Form, just.
Could you put that up? Sure.
Sure. I think you've covered most of the stuff that's in it. but-
Yep, no problem. Okay. So this is the zoning information as far as the lot and the location, the ownership. Reading through this, we're planning to demolish the existing non-conforming that sits in a LIMWA A13 zone and move it back on the property so we consider it a still water flooding zone to be FEMA compliant. We're reducing the non-conforming building coverage by 31 feet. We're reducing the existing non-conforming front porch setback by we're increasing the setback by 2.1 feet. Principal building front setback will be increased by 5.25 feet. The existing non-conforming side setback will be increased by 0.2, and the existing non-conforming detached garage will be demolished and replaced with a smaller tool shed, moving its footprint into greater conformity with the height setback. This spells out, so we're asking for relief from 3.6A, B, D, B, and 11.2, which lays out the various setbacks, the coverage, and then the relief from the accessory building setback. I think the site is existing non-conforming, so it is a hardship associated with it being an existing non-conformity. The shed, both the shed and garage and house were built prior to zoning. In this area, it's a very small lot at 4,442. It's in a FEMA zone and in a LIMWA zone, which is forcing sort of a major redo of the property in order to bring that into compliance. And we have septic, which again is being brought in. It's accessible now. It's being brought into conformity. It's near the shore. Definitely a benefit on the plan of conservation development and town plan. Literal enforcement of the regulations would really render, I think, the site unusable for it to be a home. It would, with the lot coverage and floor area ratio, it'd be, really unusable. So bringing that prior nonconformity forward into this project and reducing it slightly, I think is the avenue that is the only feasible avenue to have continued use of this property. And how is our proposal in harmony with the general purpose of the regulations? I think, again, we've taken care to sort of look at the existing home, how it fits in context with the adjacent homes, and design something I think that will feel appropriate and in keeping with the neighborhood, yet still viable, safe, and better for the environment with the septic. We did have two variances that were granted associated with the prior that really actually, if they were written correctly, actually probably would have, we wouldn't need to be before you. But when they were granted, they mixed up the north property and the south property lines in the way it was written. So they granted a 7-foot relief from the north, but it should have been on the south or vice versa. And it was very, so we decided when we met that it wasn't something that we really could want to argue or bring that forward. So we decided just to start over and get new variances for the property. But this has been granted when they did the dormer change on the second floor, and they were actually granted more front setback at the time. There wasn't an open porch setback, so that wasn't granted, but the north and south property line setbacks were granted at that time, and both sort of in keeping. They just reversed them when it was written and put on the deed.
So in the process of this, you're saying, okay, we'd like to cancel those and replace them with.
Yes, I mean,
They
I don't
were
know if they're
gonna
ever canceled. They're always there. But the way, well, first they were under the old zoning. So the requirements were very different. Basically, it was 1 acre zoning when they were granted back then. But the way that they just, it's very confusing because there's two that were actually the same,
Corrected one or something.
but it wasn't corrected.
It wasn't
So
corrected.
it was very strange. So they went before them, they got it issued, they put it on the deed, and then, but it was granting relief from the south property line when they needed it on the north property line. And then they came back and did it again for the same variances 2 years later, and it was reversed again. So we just, I don't know what the history is. It's a long time in the history, back in '03. So we don't really have a record of that. So I think we should just move forward with our presentation of this and hopefully seek a new well-written variance that addresses all the issues.
I was just thinking of clarifying it, if we just said, forget those.
Yes, I think that would be our interest. So it is in a flood zone. We do have a coastal site plan. I don't know what happened here, but that should be yes.
Yes.
And there are no in the wetlands within 100 feet of the property. This is an issue with your application. So this, we're not within 500 feet. We're not in the watershed boundary. And then these are the lot characteristics you can see.
So what are the red circles?
So these are the ones that should be. This one, for some reason, both pop up black in the
When they try
application
to fill it
online.
online.
This is the online
it-
version.
Yeah, the fillable form makes an error, so they're indicating with the red circles that that's what the answer is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're not in an aquifer protection area. And then these are the statistics that are on our chart as well. We're compliant with regard to building height and average building height. And the proposed area is, bringing forward the existing nonconformity for the total floor.
That's it.
The rest of this.
Yeah, just all boilerplate.
Would you mind going back to the page that had where you had the line where the Linwood zone was and then the
Sure, yeah,
Stillwater?
that's on the site plan, the
And-
first page.
And so you were saying that this house was built before, prior to zoning, so since the house was put there, then this line was put on the property.
So
So
yes. So this is the FEMA line that distinguishes the A13 Limwa zone with wave action. And then north of that diagonal line is an A12. And this corner of the porch is over that line and brings the whole building into the requirements of the Limwa.
I see. So if you were to just rebuild it in place, you'd be in there and you'd have to.
We have to be 3 to 4 feet higher because the structure,
Yeah.
the lowest structure needs to be, and we'd have to be on a pier foundation system as opposed to a regular foundation system, which is much more costly. And so we are just sliding the house back in the same line, just enough to get us out of that. So that 2.1 feet that we're pushing back is basically enough to put us into the A, and that allows the house to be 3 feet low.
Thank you.
The balance for it?
I'm sorry?
How much of it?
About 3 feet, because it's the-
That makes, yeah.
it's the structural depth and an extra, well, it's an extra foot, 813 to 812 plus the 2 foot of structural depth, so it's upwards of 3 feet.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
It also really increases the stairs. 3 feet is 6 treads, 6 feet of stair, to get in and out of the house. It's like that.
Get tired. Before we wanted to. Before we wanted to,
Yeah, it's not.
So, maybe a little naive here, but have you ever did you ever consider just raising the house as it is up?
So-
And then you would avoid all of these variances here because you could rebuild in the same footprint and carry your variances forward.
So, we would still be in the limbo zone if we did that. So we would have to raise it that extra 3 feet. We would have to add the stairs.
Right.
Does Madison have a by right FEMA
The
compliance? FEMA compliance? No. So many other towns do have the ability to raise a house, but I would have to come for a variance for you to raise the house to be FEMA compliant. Guilford has a staff approval system for a FEMA if it stays under the height, but Madison does not. So I still would be before you to raise the house to make it FEMA compliant.
Would it be just one variance?
Well, no, because we're non-conforming and we're making the building higher within those non-conformities. So it really would be very similar, actually, because I'd be increasing the non-conformity within a non-conforming setback. So,
Yeah, because if there's a setback requirement and you raise the building, then you need to get variance for this again.
Yeah.
Isn't that correct, Maria? So, yeah, so it would be these variances plus raising it.
But even if he stayed in the same footprint,
Yes,
all of those other variances could stay with the house.
they're technically increasing because they're
Ah.
increasing vertically.
Okay.
Yeah.
and we don't have variances, they're existing non-conformities.
Oh, existing.
Yeah.
So, arguably, there were variances granted, but they weren't written correctly. So we really are just basing this on the home was built prior to zoning. Zoning then was imposed upon it to make nonconformities, and those are a hardship associated with that continued use of a property. And so, this, I think, is the path of least resistance for them. Definitely is better, I think, from bringing it more out of harm's way by moving it back on the property. And it really lifting homes, if you raise the home, you're exposing it to more wind, you have to bring the structural upgrade to the whole house. And for a cottage that was built like this that just has sort of 4x4s every 4
Yeah.
feet,
Okay.
it's a really hard process to
Yeah.
try and strengthen that home and bring it up. We have to meet energy code if we do that, so we have to bring an old cottage up to energy code. It's a cascade, and it's why you see so many homes, unfortunately, not being renovated. You see a couple that do, but then you watch what happens to the house after it's lifted. It's basically a whole new house. I mean, they're just done from the inside. So this, I think, grants, we are going a little higher to, capture a little bit more floor area, but that's conforming. Just to justify the investment and make it a little bit more usable, but it's only 1,740 square feet of living space. It's a very, very small.
Yeah, my only concern was the number. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 variances here.
Yeah.
And our charter here is to, all right, if you got 6 variances here, what have you given up, to justify those variances? And
Well, we've made every single one more conforming.
yeah, but is it enough? I mean, the bottom line is still you got 6 variances. If you only had 1 or 2, but here you got 6.
Yeah.
And you've actually increased on a couple of them, made it more non-compliant.
No. everyone is, reduction in non-conforming.
No, if you go to the accessory building, the existing is 5.7 and your proposed is 2.9. So that's an increase. And the accessory side setback, the existing is 6.5.
No, it's backwards the way it's written, so existing rear extends 5.7 feet past the 1-to-1 slope. Our proposed is 2.9, so that's a 2.8 foot reduction in the non-conformity. So it's not, because the setback is set by the height of that angle, it's backwards. We don't have a setback, it's not like we have to meet a 10-foot setback. It's determined by the height. So the way it's written, existing rear extends 5.7 feet past. So if you look at this,
Oh, so you're moving it in closer.
we're moving it further away. So see,
Oh, I'm just looking at your table.
no,
I just copied your table, see? And it's right here. Existing 2.2.
Which table we need to see?
that's the average height. It's
Well, I'm not
existing.
concerned about the height, yeah.
Well, so that's conforming, no. So that one is increasing the height, but it is conforming, and that's
We
mostly because of the.
need to see this, so it can't be discussion.
Okay,
So,
so
You want to see up on
So,
the screen, and we can all see. what
sure.
you're talking
on the application, he's
remembering
he's looking at the application, which I think is.
here.
Yes. Okay, so you were pointing to this 29.7 versus 22. That is the height, and that's got to be below 30. So we're still
Oh, I understand
conforming.
that.
Okay, so what else were you?
No,
Are you on
no,
the
I
zoning
wasn't
table?
concerned about that. I was looking at your table for the accessory rear setback.
Okay.
And that was existing at 5.7. And now you're 2.9
So
closer.
Can I point out something? I see where you're going. I find that sometimes the setback differences are a little confusing because on the tables here, they state how much the non-compliance is, but on the other one, it states how far the setback is.
Right.
Yeah.
And it gets inverted because in this one, you want it to decrease, but in the other one, you want it to increase.
Right.
The setback from the front, you want to increase the setback to be further away. But on this one, it's written as how much of a non-compliance do we have? We're reducing non-compliance.
that was Maria. So if you just look at our chart,
This is her fault?
It's
Well,
my
it-
fault.
it-
Go ahead.
Bad.
Go ahead.
if you just look at this chart and you'd said, so the current setback is 5.4, our proposed is 7 feet. So that is, no, actually, that doesn't add up right either. So it's reversed. We're non-conforming by the 5.7, and we're going to be non-conforming by 2.9 when we're done, when we move the
Yeah,
building
right,
further
right.
away.
Right.
So we're ending up being 2.8 feet further
Okay.
from conformity, but it's not the same because the eave height is slightly different, and that's what's setting our measurements. So it's not, it's very, that particular.
Yeah, that's confusing.
That
Yeah.
diagonal line is very, but in all cases, we're reducing
Okay.
the
All
non-conformity.
right, I'll believe you.
And I would say that really why so many variances are required on this particular lot is that it's 4,400 square feet. I mean, it is the size of a lot of houses, it's the size of the property. And that's been a continued use, and it's similar to some other, but it is smaller than most of the other area project properties. But I do think that that is a particular hardship to maintain a useful site that you can build on. And so there is not too many other ways that I think we could bring it further into conformity. It's a really tricky. But the big things, the bulk of the house, so we're conforming with regard to height and with with floor area. So we're fully conforming with regard to the bulk of the house, which I think is important to say. And we're maintaining an existing condition on the north property and an existing condition on the south property. And we're benefiting the town and the neighborhood by moving it further back. And we're bringing in conformity with septic, which Mike will get into, which I think is a real benefit to the town as far as granting this and allowing the investment of this to improve this property in this way will be a benefit.
I did have a question on the maximum total building height. In the regulations, there's a maximum total building height for narrow lots. And this property width is 42 feet, if I'm correct. And the proposed house width is 24 feet. Is that correct?
Proposed house width?
The house, the new house?
Yes,
24
yes.
feet. Okay, so that comes out to about 57%. And in this particular table here, it says the maximum total building height would be 36 feet.
What table is that? Is that zoning laws?
2.71.
Zoning laws.
Is in the regulations.
He's in the regulations. So, that might be, so the narrow lot, you're saying percentage wise of the setback or the house width compared to the width of the lot.
Yes.
And it's triggered for narrow lots that are under the existing required lot width in the zone.
I thought it had to be raised for FEMA.
I don't know. Well, we are higher than what,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there is an exemption for FEMA, but we are potentially higher than that. I think if we find that that is applicable, I think we could, modify our design in order to be compliant with that height. Might have been an oversight. You pull up
You're
that
not- yeah.
section.
The
Yeah,
section?
Yeah, I guess.
so
So what would you have to reduce the height now
Um,
if it's applicable here?
18 inches, the peak would have to go down, I believe,
Right.
or just shy of that, I think. Which,
well, is that an exhibit submitted for?
Yeah,
well, so that's the active current copy of the zoning?
Mine's old.
Height limitation 2.7.
Maria's gonna bring it up. 7.1.
that's good, John.
Maria, can you display that, sir?
I'm getting there.
Okay, super. Thank you.
So 42. House. Widest portion, so that. It could be, so we're in the, here it is.
Yeah, it's over here.
TV.
So 36 feet and average 28 feet. Okay. What is, and there's no exemptions. There's not even a FEMA exemption.
So I thought there was, so.
For buildings in the
looking
floodplain,
at the
oh.
floodplain,
Maximum
average-
total building and average height. Just from the original grade, it doesn't give an
It
exemption.
doesn't give an exemption. I was taking it as that they were
Okay,
shall be measured on the.
well, we likely have to look at that, actually. So. Okay. We'll have to look at that. So I don't know whether, I mean, if that is required for us, let me say, I'd love to move forward with our variances that we have before you this evening. When it goes to building permit, we won't be able to build it if we don't have variance for a height reduction. So I don't think that that imposes any real concerns. It's basically just our sort of lowering the pitch of the roof. If we were to go and look at the way that this is laid out, we would use the pitch of the dormers and the main roof in order to just bring them
36.
into conformity. So when we go before, to get a building permit, we would have a compliant situation.
Maria, does the fact that they'd be elevating it because of FEMA requirements provide justification there for another variance? I would think that basically says
That I
that
don't
36 feet.
allow, that's why. I mean, I actually missed it too when we went over it, so, but like you said, the other variances asking, this would come through for building. And
So I could reapply for another variance
if you
and come
can't
before you
modify
if we
it,
felt we wanted to pursue that.
or,
But I think it can be a standalone situation because I can talk to the client about making a modification of the overall height of the project. We designed this way because we thought we could go to the 37 feet.
Yeah, I'd hate to have to deal with the separately though, because then we could say, well, no, you can't do it. Because you violate something, you don't have a variance up to that height. And I don't wanna, you understand what I'm saying?
I don't see, I'll have to consult with them, but one of the challenges of arguing a variance on this particular piece, I thought that there was a little bit of an exemption associated with FEMA to encourage people to bring things into
Which is what
conformity.
I'm thinking.
There isn't, but what I would say is that if you took the existing house and you raised it up to be compliant with FEMA, the peak would be lower than we're proposing. So it is a little harder to push for a variance to push it higher. In this case, we would be increasing non-conformity beyond what the FEMA
Yeah, I don't
requirement.
know how we worded an approval for the plan if we then had to say, but you can't make it that high.
I think you don't have to say that, because you're granting variances for the pieces that we're asking for variance, which are lot coverage and setback. The building department won't grant a building permit if we don't have a variance associated with the height. We have to be conforming with regard to height, so I don't think you need to say anything.
Okay,
As long as you don't feel that changing the roof pitch is going to have an impact on your opinion of the other
Well,
variances.
no, I think normally what we do is we approve you to build in accordance with the design. And in that case, we couldn't say that because the design,
for the variances that he's asking for in accordance with the plan. So the plans go with the variances he's asking for, and we did have something similar. That if it came back to me, then I would have to question the height if he didn't modify it prior to submitting the building permit. So he could modify the height prior to that, and it would comply. If he doesn't choose to modify, he can come back and ask for another variance for the height.
We can.
But the plans match,
word it,
the variances match the plans.
say,
Yeah, and we can
We
always
could
make
condition
our
it.
motion to say excluding the height design. just
Right.
If we
I
want.
was just gonna say that,
Yeah.
yeah, we could say that.
or just say that The height has to be in.
No.
I would. I don't think we
We're
would
we're just saying,
still
meet all of the
see
zoning
ours.
requirements.
Well, there has to anyway, because then we'll get a
Yeah.
burning building permit.
Yeah. And then the septic.
Doing that.
Just, Dylan, do you have any questions? Are you on?
Um, yeah. So,
Wait. Hold
Hold on, Dylan, 1 second.
Okay.
What, did you want to say something or you're doing the math?
Oh, 60%, oh, 0.3, okay, all right. So we could either narrow the house by a foot, or we could raise the house, okay, all right. Or lower the house, I'm sorry, or buy adjacent land, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah. So, besides the reduction in nonconformities, you would say the size of the lot constitutes a hardship?
I would say the size of the lot is a hardship, the FEMA is a hardship, the septic constraints of getting a code-compliant septic on the property is a hardship, and that it is an existing nonconformity that we are reducing in all cases.
I'm okay. Thank you.
Should we move on to the coastal site plan?
I think it's okay.
Would you mind reviewing the coastal site? plan?
Mike is here.
Okay,
So,
great.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Michael Harkin. I'm a professional engineer and principal of Harkin Engineering, located at 78 Wolf Hollow Lane in the town of Killingworth, Connecticut. Again, here tonight on behalf of our client for the project at 7 Park Ave in your town of Madison, Connecticut. Okay, so what you see here is our coastal area management site plan or coastal site plan. You know, if we start off with our location map, you know, we all know where Park Ave is based on the map. You can see we have the survey, which was performed by Gessick and Associates. The site is located in an R5 zone. It's also known as map 16, lot 72. And as Russ had said, it's a little over 4,000 square feet or 0.1 acres. So it's very, very small. I had the easier job as compared to Russ's. Maria, if you can zoom in on the site plan. So again, as described by Russ, we're in an AE12 and AE13 zone. We have the big bold line that you see here, which is the flood zone. And then you have the Limois that's down in this section. You can see, as per Russ's discussion, we've moved the house back. The proposed house is shaded pretty dark, the 2 bedrooms. And you can see it's right at the corner, right outside of that zone. It's actually a difficult site in the fact that we have that zone line and we are constrained by that line, but we're also constrained by all the setbacks of the septic system to get a code conforming septic system. We do have health department approval for a code conforming septic system. You can see the tank in the rear yard and the proposed system again in the rear yard sandwiched between the proposed shed and that existing house. So we have the constraints here and here, virtually squishing the house to what you see in front of you and what Russ had shown on his architectural site plan. In order to maintain the town of Madison's requirements for storm drainage, there is a little bit of impervious increase on the site. So we do have an underground detention basin out in front. So we checked the box with that. The overhead utilities for the house currently come in from the Eversource pole across the street. It will continue to do so. It'll just be attached in this corner, and we will have no aerial trespasses on any of the neighbors' properties. The water line, the main is on the far side of the street, but we do have a gate valve on the property. We're going to connect into that gate valve and then come across into the proposed house. In the front section, we will have a asphalt area in the right of way, and then it will go to 2 stone strips for the car parking. Right now, they're really just driving on the grass. You know, if it rains, if they're going to be living here full time, it's going to get muddy. But they wanted to continue with that old country feel with having those stone pads there. They also work as ground infiltration and detention, so that actually worked out in our favor as well. In the back, you have the covered porch area with the emergency generator. And then you have the call outs for the first floor elevation, which will meet FEMA. And we do have a letter from DEP. They had like 3 minor comments that we'll go over. One of us to ensure that their appurtenances like the AC condensers and the generator and electric were raised to meet the FEMA requirements, which they are. And back, we have the proposed shed area that Russ was talking about with the description of the angles and stuff from the property line. And then we do have the propane tanks in the rear that will come and feed into the house from that location. We do have on the site as a requirement, we have the erosion control measures, which are the silt fence that comes around the whole property. We also put a note for staked hay bales in case they're needed. It's a pretty flat site. It's all grass. We don't anticipate the need for staked hay bales, but we have them on there if we do in case need them. We also have a construction entrance to be built in front, so we're not tracking any dirt onto the Park Ave private road. So really with that, that's the end of my presentation with the site plan. I'm just going to go over the notes. You may remember here a month ago or 2 months ago when we got the comments back a couple hours before the meeting. We got that again tonight, so it's all good. Virtually coming down the list under summary and recommendations, and if Maria wants to pop that up. Number 1 was to ensure the installation and maintenance of appropriate erosion and sediment control measures during the planned project. We have them as we had just gone over. We will do so. There's a note on there, if there's an instance where more are needed, that we have the right to tell the contractor to put more on there. The second is to ensure that the structure's elevation, electrical and AC units meet FEMA AE 12 zone and local flood management standards. That's the blurb that I just put in there at the end of my presentation, that we've done that and we've checked that, and we will check it again when the project is completed. We're required to put an as-built drawing together, and that will give the elevations of those structures. And the last one is to ensure the storage tool shed has flood vents and is designed with breakaway walls. This one's a little wonky. We could put the flood vents in there. I don't think we have a problem with that, but how do you really design breakaway walls on a shed? You really can't put lattice work and lattice work together. My belief, and I can't say for sure, is I think that the reviewer believed that the whole project was in the Linois zone. And if it was in the Linois zone, everything would have to be to that effect. But we don't mind putting the flood vents in, but we don't think we can construct a structure with breakaway walls. It'll just really collapse. So out of all 3 of those, we don't have a problem with it. We just like number 3 to be modified to no breakaway walls.
And it will be, there'll be duckbill anchors to avoid flotation. That's a requirement of the code. So they have hold downs associated with not having it float, but breakaway walls is not what FEMA requires or the building code.
Yeah, there's a lot of those little appurtenances that are put in that we don't talk about, like the propane tanks will be strapped down with chains and anchors. Those are the things that have to be done per FEMA in a flood zone.
Thank you. Does anybody have
any questions about the site plan?
Dylan?
Okay. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you. Anybody in the audience would like to speak in favor of the application?
You know what I'd like to do first? There was a letter that came in, legally unsigned. But it talked about the water rights, the water company rights. And I think, it talked about water company rights. And I think.
Yeah, we received an anonymous letter
It was anonymous, okay.
today.
Yeah.
But the easements are all,
Yeah, I think it was out into the road and
it has nothing.
Yeah, we have an A2 survey that represents the easements, and they're
Yeah.
incorporated into our setbacks. We don't own the easements. So our front property line and our setbacks all are dimensionally correct.
Okay, so given A, that the letter was anonymous, and everybody indicated what relevance it has, I think we'll probably disregard it. All right. Okay,
Anybody in the audience like to speak in favor?
Did you say that there would be questions first?
Yeah, or you can ask questions, sure.
I just have two questions.
Sure.
To start, and then I'd like to speak.
Sure, if you could start. with
David Beecher, I'm next door at 11 Park Avenue. Own the house next door to the Williams for 14 years at this point. Two quick questions for the architect. Just to be certain, the entire house, including the porch, is going west 5 point whatever feet.
Now, the front porch is going back 2.1 feet. Currently, the dormer cantilevers over the top of the porch.
Right.
So that is going to be aligned to the house. So the porch is staying the same depth. But the second floor of it is moving
Right.
back 3 more
Gotcha.
feet. So it's 5 and change for the main house, but the front porch is only moving back 2.1.
But still moving west.
West.
Selfish question, that's my view
Yeah.
of the water through the porch,
Yep.
so.
And
Great,
second floor will be improved by
Right.
the 5 feet, because that's.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And just the generator, could you just, that's gonna be in the corner closest to my living space. And I'm just curious what the implications are relative to the generator for me.
Yep, so unfortunately, generators have to be raised above the FEMA flood line. And so it has to be kind of on the house in some way, and it has to meet the setback requirements. So we're pretty limited, it has to be sort of on the house. So from a vantage point to the way generator will work, it will probably cycle, and you can negotiate with Williams when that would be ideal to do. They suggest once a week, but often people set them for more like once every 2 weeks or once a month. And then obviously, if there's an outage, it would be running. It is
I am literally, with this one, I will literally be encircled by generators, so that's why I asked.
well, you can get them all to go on at the same time. If you negotiate with your neighborhood to do that weekly cycle. But it is it is a propane generator, which is quieter than a gasoline generator. And it does have a fiberglass housing, which is a sound attenuating. I mean, they still
Gotcha.
are
Yeah.
loud, but
I understand, I just wanted to check on that. Okay. So I don't know if you guys want to ask questions or I'll just speak in favor at the same
Sure.
time. So I guess, from my perspective, I'm more impacted by this than anyone else. Obviously, there's a person behind them, but behind is behind. There's a person in front of them, but they're not losing that, what we all love, which is the view of the ocean. So I'm impacted most. I think number one, you have tried to accommodate all of the variant issues relative to neighbors and such, and I appreciate that. Second, I have tremendous confidence that if anything comes up with this project, that I can speak to the Williams. They are probably two of the most low-key, humble, easygoing people in the entire town. So I know if there's anything that comes up, I can speak to them, and I feel like they would be understanding, and that gives me comfort. This will complete, again, an encircling of my house, the fourth house to be torn down and rebuilt around me. So I've had experience with the others. It's been mixed with the others, I should say, but I have complete confidence in the Williams. And from my perspective, again, as the person who I think is most impacted by this, everything you have mentioned improves my situation, not impacts it negatively. So I guess from selfish perspective, I'm grateful for that. And the last thing, and if this is out of line, I apologize in advance. I don't see where there should be an issue, whether it's 2 variances or 22 variances. If you're improving things and making it better for the neighborhood, then I don't care how many variances there are, they all ought to be granted. So I understand your question, I think, but at the same time, if there are improvements, who cares what the number is? Let's do them and make the improvements. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
My name's Dee Dee Stone. It's my husband Doug. We are neighbors. We're at 43 Middle Beach. We live 3 houses down from the Williamses, 4 houses down from Dave. We found them to be lovely neighbors. They adore this town. Her mother has a home in town as well and has for generations. I think if there was anything they could have done to save this house, they would have. We're big believers in saving cottages. We've saved a couple of them, as Maria well knows. And I think that it was just a situation of, given the requirements, there was no way for them to do it without doing this. The design looks thoughtful. It looks as though it will certainly fit in with the neighborhood. My only question for you gentlemen is with the utilities coming in on the road, Park Avenue is a private road. I assume that they will then repave anything that they have to dig up to do to put access into the new home. So my husband and I are in support of this.
Okay, thank you.
And I do agree with Dave about the variances. I mean, the thing that's funny about this area is, as you can see how the lots are very strange down there. They don't go square, they're angled, and there's little cutouts, and you have 6 inches on one side that you don't have on the other side, and that part of Madison was developed very, very early before there was any zoning, and I think that in many cases, when there has to be multiple variances, it's largely because of the nonconformity. And there's, unfortunately, as a homeowner, not much you can do about that, because our house was built in, this one, 1863. I mean, it was just a different time, and obviously the conformity issues don't work like they do with the development, where you have someone coming in and building so many houses on so many lots that are all exactly the same square footage. So that's my only point on that, but we're fully in support of the Williamses' proposals.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone on the internet Zoom have their hands up or anything? Okay, so I assume that no one's going to speak against. Anybody on the board have any other questions? Dylan, are you good? Any further questions or?
I'm good.
Okay.
Raquel had a question.
Oh,
I
okay,
just want to make sure whose name
sure.
she's looking for. And I don't know if it was Dee Dee she didn't get.
Can
Yeah, can I just have both your names for the record? Oh, from 11 Parker.
11 Park, David
Hold on.
Beecher, Beecher.
And it's 11 Park.
Yes.
Parker.
And it's Dee Dee and Doug Stone, 43 Middle Beach.
You I got.
So we good?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion then.
Any final comments from the applicant?
I think so.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing and we move into deliberations.
Yes, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, who wants to start? John, you want to start us off?
Well, I mentioned my situation and also I'm not exactly clear on what the unique hardship is other than the lot size. Lots of that.
Dylan, do you want to go on? Would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, so I would be in favor of granting these variances. I think the reduction in nonconformities is good enough by itself, but I also think that the property does have some hardships, including its irregularly a small size, and the fact that a lot of this stuff has to be done to meet FEMA requirements and the LIMWA stuff. So I would be in favor of granting these variances.
Yeah, in general, I don't consider the fact that the lot is a small size inherently to be a hardship, but when you have a hardship that says, I gotta get these things in there, and I gotta meet FEMA, and I got everything else, and reducing non-conformances, I agree that combined with the lot's small size, then does make it a hardship, so I think I'd be in favor of approval, so.
Bill?
No, I can't add any more as to what Dylan said and Dennis, so I concur with their observations, and I would be in favor of granting the variances.
Yeah, I'm in favor as well, and I think there's a reduction in every variance requested. I think it's a very modest request. I think it's definitely in harmony with the houses. They're not asking for a gigantic thing. But John, do you want to discuss your one further?
No, I don't.
I guess, like for me, instead of the hardship, I look at it as a reduction in several non-conformities.
Okay with that.
Okay. I'll make a motion, if someone else would like to. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve application 2413, 7 Park Avenue, to grant a variance for 36A, 36B, 36D, 38B, and section 11.2. The variance is based on the fact that there are reductions in all the existing nonconformities, and also the lot size. The house being built prior to zoning, we feel makes it a hardship as well. And that the variance is based on the plans as submitted, that all construction must conform to those plans. That we also find that the coastal site plan is consistent with the goals and policies with the Coastal Management Act. Can I get a second?
I'll second that, I'll ask questions.
Sure.
Because you second and then you discuss, right?
Sure.
I'm not sure I would want to use the words design is constructed, unless we say, and in compliance with zoning regulations. So if we get to 271, that would be our way of saying, no, we didn't prove it to violate the thing. We said they have to comply with the zoning things. We'll come back and get a 271 variance later on, and then it'll all be covered.
Yeah, but the thing is, I didn't even mention 2.7. That's why I just
I know,
wanted to keep it off.
but then you did say compliance with the design. The design is not in compliance with 271. So if we simply say compliance with the design and but within all local zoning laws.
Yeah, the thing is, Maria, this area, when they go to get a building permit, she is going to figure out the site issue, and they won't get a building permit.
Well, we can say all within the zoning requirements too.
The thing is, I don't know if I want to make this,
Okay.
don't forget, this goes with the land, so I don't know how complicated we want to make this variance,
Yeah, she has to,
motion.
yeah, they gotta go before the application for the building permit, and that's where this will come up.
So
Exactly.
So I still think we ought to make a statement that says, that basically says, you got zoning laws that may override the design. And that way, we don't have something where we give out blanket coverage to say, yeah, go ahead and do it according to the.
Okay, now how about if we say we, based on the plans except for the height? Would that be all right, excluding the height? presented in the plans?
I would just,
That way we're leaving height out of
that means the whole design has to change.
I
Um,
make a
And,
suggestion?
and that creates a whole issue. I would just rather
Can I just
say,
make a
in
suggestion?
accordance with the design and in compliance with local zoning laws.
Can I make a suggestion? I think that Richard went about it.
You can't hear.
I think Richard naming the specific variances he asked for was a good way to go about it.
Yeah.
Approve variance requests and naming the ones that he
I like-
asked for
I like that.
based on the reduction of those existing nonconformities and kind of, and leave it at that. And
Yeah.
approve the
You know,
coastal site plan.
it's Design, you say in accordance with the variances requested.
So you want me to, you want me to take that out then?
The design,
The construction must conform to those plans.
yeah, I would.
Okay,
Truthfully, I mean, something else can change as far as a code requirement that wouldn't affect any of the variances, so. The plans are subject to change. They could, depending on certain, building code, may not be the exact plans that are submitted tonight. So as long as they don't affect the variances, I think that he's asking for. So I would just leave it at what he asked.
I think so. You're probably right.
now, if you're not good with it, I can strike that out.
I'll go with it. I'll pull back my objection. Just, you are right, he does have to leave for the building. Okay,
Any other discussion?
now, wait,
Okay.
was that, did you include the coastal site plan in that?
Yes.
Okay, then we need to say,
Oh, yeah, I said that.
incorporate the recommendations from deep, except for the number 3 breakaway walls are not required.
Oh, okay.
I would add that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, so I'm gonna, this is all being recorded, Maria, right? Okay, so I'm gonna amend that,
Also site plan,
Approval coastal site plan.
include these 3.
yeah, that this coastal site plan is gonna include number 1 and 2, but not number 3.
Well, number 3 would have a fence. Not the regulations.
The breakaway portion of number 3.
Right.
We're not, okay. Anybody want to second that?
Could,
Second.
I already
it-
did second.
is it allowed to ask if you could
Would you like me to redo it?
repeat the motion?
Sure, I will repeat the motion. So we're gonna strike that last motion. I would like to make a new motion to approve application 2413 7 Park Avenue to grant variance for section 3.6A, 3.6B, 3.6D, 3.8B, section 11.2. Reason being, 1, the reduction in existing nonconformities, and B, the hardship because of the house being built prior to zoning. And I'd like to add that the variance is based on the plans as submitted, and that the construction must conform to those
That's
plans.
not the part, we were taking that out.
Yeah, take that part out.
We're taking that part out, just based on what it was based on, and then,
Based on the plan, okay.
no, because that was Dennis's.
Sorry, everyone.
That's fine.
I'm gonna strike that and I'm gonna, let's go for 3. 3's the charm. I'd like to make a motion to approve application 2413 7 Park Avenue to grant variances for 3.6A, 3.6B, 3.6D, 3.8B, and 11.2, based on the reduction of existing nonconformities and the hardship that the house was built prior to zoning laws. And also that we find that coastal site plan is consistent with the goals and policies of the Coastal Management Act,
Contingent upon.
contingent upon implementing the recommendations from DEEP, except for number 3 with the breakaway walls on the accessory building. Did I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that's unanimous, so congratulations. Thanks very much. Sorry that took so long. No worries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Because myself one week. Thanks, Bill.
Approval of minutes?
We have approval. of minutes.
Yep.
Okay.
Where are they? Oh, yes. So I'd like to make an approval, a motion to approve the minutes from the September 10th meeting. All in favor? Aye. And it's unanimous. Opposed? Motion Maria, any other business? I think we're done.
No.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor? Aye. That's it.
Thanks, Dylan, for logging